Beer America drinker.
Drinker.
A little
collaboration.
Yeah.
SpongeBob.
So,
SpongeBob?
yeah, SpongeBob. SquarePants. Yeah.
SpongeBob.
So as you know here, one of our, I think early on we established that we weren't going to rate beers here, and we weren't going to, you know, I don't know, just say, oh, you know, I give this an A or 2 thumbs up or whatever, because taste is subjective to all of us. I can't say that I've loved every beer we've tried, certainly, but you know what? I know a lot of people do love the beers that I didn't like, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
So a few episodes ago, John and I talked about a non-American craft beer that we were familiar with in the past, Newcastle Brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're all familiar with Newcastle, and I think everybody out there is familiar with Newcastle as well. Let me hold up the mini keg that was sent to me.
Gotta love the 5-liter can.
From Jack Fulman, who happened to see that episode, because you and I were not glowing, even though we didn't say anything bad about it. I think our expression was, okay, we've kind of moved beyond it. And that's the point of this kind of, we got talking about it, and Jack sent, you know, Newcastle to us, and all of us are familiar with Newcastle. Well, we started talking about stories of what we were familiar about it, and I have to say, for me, Newcastle was one of those beers that was my high-end craft beer before American craft beers really started to be what they are today.
Well, it's a far cry above the, you know, the mass-produced light lagers that are out there right now in America. Yeah,
Exactly.
it has flavor,
and it's still one of those, with flavor, and it's still one of those beers that if I go to a bar and it doesn't, I mean, nothing appeals to me really, I'll say, oh, you've got Newcastle, I will drink the Newcastle. For sure, I will drink the Newcastle. Well, so there you go. So we're going to have some Newcastle here.
We've made an exception to our rule.
We have.
American craft beer, and we're sort of paying homage, largely inspired by the contribution of Newcastle, to kind of look at this as a sort
precursor.
The heritage, if you will, of American craft brewing.
Well, I've got a kind of a special place in my heart for Newcastle. I spent several years working in England with a bunch of guys from Newcastle. And when we would get off, and it was shift work, and when there was a place nearby that was open 24 hours, basically. And when we would get off work at 8 in the morning, we'd go and head into the pub, and they had Newcastle on tap. And
you got off at 8 in the morning?
Yeah. Well, I'd been up all night working, and you know, I mean, that was.
I understand. I'm just.
But
blows my mind. It's terrible shit.
Actually, I kind of liked it. It was quiet. Yeah. So, but this was kind of became my breakfast beer for a while, and I loved it. I mean, it was excellent.
Yeah, I think when same thing here. I think the point that we want to make is that, you know, before American craft beer became American craft beer, we were all drinking beers like Newcastle. I mean, because if you were going to drink the other mainstay beers, there was no other alternative really for us than you know, to have a Heineken or a Newcastle, or there's a number of them. I mean, even the Belgian beers that you see today, they've been brewing beers for how many thousands of years, and you still see a lot of those in places.
Tough to get.
Tough to get.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and this was one of mine. I mean, I've always been kind of an Anglophile. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I went and worked in England for several years. My son was actually born there, so he can play cricket for York County.
There you go.
If he wants to, yeah.
Excellent.
Born in Harrogate. But this is the style of beer. Actually, my other beer is John's. He just started brewing this, I think, delicious English Pale Ale. And I'm so happy about it because I love these English styles of beer. There's a malt quality that the Americans have tended toward the hop.
Definitely malty Newcastle is, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe why I was attracted to it early. Yeah.
And I tend to brew these. Yeah, I tend to brew these when I'm home brewing. John's got one of my milds sitting down in the cellar that he has yet to try.
My cellar at home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My cellar. Your cellar? My cellar.
My cellar.
Yeah.
But that's what I do is I tend to brew these kind of English style. I enjoy them. That's kind of what I enjoy.
Really, the standout character to me is just the sort of sessionable quality.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a very, very easy drinking beer.
Yeah.
It has that sort of lager-like drinkability to it.
Yep. And low alcohol, and it goes good with a lot of food, and that's what we used to eat.
Sure.
My wife and I would have chicken wings and nachos and drink Newcastle. That was kind of our thing in Rochester, New York. That was back in the early days. With talking like early 90s.
Think a nice grilled burger. I mean, sitting on your back porch, a couple of Newcastles in the cooler, on ice, and you've got a nice grilled hamburger. It's good stuff.
So thank you to Jack Bowman for sending this. I hope we didn't seem like we were knocking the beers down, Newcastle down, because you have 3 people here that enjoy it. I mean, it's not a bad beer at all.
I mean, I enjoy drinking it. I enjoy it for its heritage, certainly. I also kind of, like I say, from a homebrewer's perspective, I try and brew styles that are very similar to this.
So there you go. Let me lift it up again. For those of you, we've diverted a little bit, our non-American craft. We're not going to always do this, but there you go. Thank you, Jack Bowman, Newcastle Brown, for the mini keg over here. Yeah, that's a can of beer right there. The top pulled right off of that, I think, and the tabs over there. So cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cool glass, too. He gave me.
Until we can pull a pint together.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we do beerengland.tv.
That's true.
I'll come over and do that one.
It's funny that on YouTube, the amount of friends that I have on my beer channel from like Australia, Germany, England.
Really?
Yep. Cool. And it's like, okay, I'll be friends with you guys too. It's all about beer. It's not all about just America.